Arizona Territory, 1872. The morning sun broke over the red cliffs, spreading gold across the canyon as the Apache camp came alive. Smoke from small fires curled into the clear sky, the smell of sage and dust hanging in the air. Jack Dalton stood between two warriors, his hands unbound but his heart pounding. The three women he had stumbled upon at the lake now stood before him, dressed in ceremonial robes of woven beads and deer hide, their faces calm, unreadable. The eldest among them, Tala, stepped forward, her eyes steady. Jack tried to speak, but words failed him. He hadn't meant to intrude on sacred ground. He'd only been looking for water, a place to rest after days of wandering through the desert. But fate had led him here, to this strange and sacred trial. Around them, the tribe watched in silence. The elder, a man whose hair was white as desert ash, lifted a carved staff and spoke in Apache, his deep voice echoing off the canyon walls. Jack didn't understand the words, but he felt their weight. Tala translated softly, her English gentle but firm. "You saw what was not meant for your eyes. Among my people that binds you to us, not by shame but by spirit. You have seen us in purity. Now you must stand with us in truth." Jack's heart thudded. He looked from one woman to the next, Tala strong and calm, Nika quiet as the wind, and Asha, the youngest, whose laughter had first broken the silence at the lake. He saw no malice in their faces, only tradition and something deeper he could not name. He could have refused. He could have fled. No one would have followed a cowboy back into the desert. But something in him stirred, perhaps respect, perhaps the ache of loneliness that had followed him for years. "I came here lost," he said softly, meeting Tala's eyes. "If my staying brings peace, then I will stay." The elder nodded once, satisfied. The tribe murmured approval, and the ceremony began. Drums started, low, steady, like the beat of the earth itself. The women stood beside Jack as the elder marked their foreheads with red clay and sage. He spoke words that carried the rhythm of centuries, words that told of balance, of joining not just lives, but spirits. Jack bowed his head, unsure what to feel. For the first time since the war, he wasn't running. He was being claimed by something greater than himself. When the ceremony ended, the tribe cheered softly. Children laughed and danced, and the women smiled, even Asha, who teased him with a sparkle in her eyes. "You are ours now, white man," she said playfully. "No running from Three Hearts," Jack laughed, shaking his head. "Wouldn't dream of it, miss." For the first time in years, the sound of his own laughter didn't feel hollow. Days turned into weeks. Jack helped the tribe mend fences, hunt deer, and bring water from the canyon. Though some still eyed him warily, most saw his quiet nature and growing respect for their ways. He shared stories of his ranch days, of the plains and the stars above Texas. In return, they taught him words from their tongue, how to listen to the wind, how to walk softly on the earth. At night, by the fire, Tala told him of their customs. "Marriage, to us, is not ownership," she said. "It is a promise, to protect, to honor, to walk the same path even when the storms come." Jack nodded, staring at the flames. "I reckon I've been running from storms all my life," he murmured. "Maybe it's time I learned to stand in one." She smiled, and in that quiet moment, something changed between them, something tender and unspoken. The other women, Nika and Asha, cared for him too in their own ways. Nika brought him food and taught him to weave cords for his horse's saddle. Asha teased him endlessly, calling him cowboy husband, though her laughter carried kindness. In their company, Jack found a peace he hadn't known in years, a sense of belonging not born from land or money, but from shared hearts. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Jack stood by the lake where it had all begun. The water glimmered like glass, untouched and sacred. The three women stood beside him, their reflections dancing in the ripples. "You came here by accident," Tala said, her voice soft. "But maybe the spirits meant for you to find us." Jack looked at her, at them all, and nodded slowly. "Maybe they did," he said, "and maybe I was meant to stay." The wind stirred the surface of the water, and the setting sun bathed them in light. In that golden silence, there were no strangers, no borders, no past sins, only the heartbeat of the earth and the quiet promise of something new. By dawn, the tribe gathered again. The elder looked upon Jack and the three women, his eyes kind. "The spirits are pleased," he said. "The stranger has become one with our land." Jack bowed his head in respect. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. He had come to the canyon a lonely man, running from ghosts and empty dreams. But beneath the rising sun, surrounded by the laughter of those who had once been strangers, Jack Dalton understood what true freedom meant. Not wandering, but belonging. Not escape, but peace. And as the light spread across the valley, touching every stone and shadow, the cowboy who once rode alone knew that his journey had ended where it was always meant to, in the wild heart of the Apache lands, with three women who had turned his mistake into a miracle. The morning sun climbed slowly over the cliffs, washing the Apache camp in shades of gold and crimson. The air carried the scent of cedar smoke and river mist, and Jack Dalton stood quietly at the edge of the gathering, his hat pressed to his chest. Before him, the three women he had stumbled upon by accident, Tala, Nika, and Asha, now stood proud and calm, their long hair braided with feathers, their faces painted in the soft hues of tradition. He had wandered into their sacred place once by mistake. Now he stood here by choice, bound not by fear, but by honor. The elder stepped forward, leaning on his carved staff, his weathered face marked by the wisdom of many winters. His voice rolled through the canyon like thunder softened by time. Though Jack didn't understand every word, the tone carried a gravity that needed no translation. Tala, the eldest sister, translated softly beside him, her voice like wind through pine. "The spirits saw you witness what was pure," she said. "To see such things is to share in their truth. Now you must promise, not to own, not to claim, but to protect and to respect." Jack swallowed hard. He had known vows before. Soldiers' oaths, whiskey promises, lies spoken to survive another day. But this one was different. It was older, sacred. He lifted his gaze to meet Tala's eyes and spoke, voice steady. "I give my word." Around them the tribe murmured in approval, the sound like distant rain. Asha smiled faintly, the mischief in her eyes tempered by something tender. "Then the spirits will watch," she said softly. As the sun climbed higher, the ceremony began. The elder drew symbols in the dust, circles for unity, lines for journey, and placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "The stranger came from the land of the lost," he said in Apache, his words flowing like song. "But the land of the lost gives birth to those who seek truth. Let his heart find rest among ours." Tala repeated the words in English, and Jack felt the weight of them settle deep within. For the first time in years, he felt he was exactly where he was meant to be. The tribe sang, low, rhythmic, and hauntingly beautiful. Drums echoed through the canyon as the sisters circled Jack, scattering sage leaves into the fire. Smoke rose in pale ribbons, drifting skyward like the breath of old spirits, watching from above. When Tala placed a string of turquoise beads around his wrist, she said, "Now you belong not to us, but with us." He bowed his head, overwhelmed. The last time he had felt this much grace, he was a child kneeling beside his mother's grave. The memory stung, but it also healed. He realized then that belonging wasn't about blood or borders. It was about choice. And he was choosing this. As the drums faded, the ceremony ended with quiet joy. The tribe offered food, roasted corn, berries, and water from the sacred spring. Children laughed and danced near the fire, while the women smiled, their faces bright with the warmth of acceptance. Jack sat among them, awkward but at peace, his rough cowboy hands trembling as he accepted the wooden bowl. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't an outsider. He was part of something. Days passed gently after that morning. Jack learned their ways, how to gather herbs from the hills, how to move silently through the desert, how to listen instead of speak. The sisters guided him with patience. Tala taught him wisdom. Nika, the quiet one, showed him how to read the sky for signs of rain. And Asha, the youngest, filled the camp with laughter that softened even the hardest hearts. Together they showed him that life wasn't just about survival, it was about harmony. One evening, as the sky turned violet and the stars began to bloom, Jack sat by the fire with Tala. The flames painted her face in amber light. "You could leave now," she said softly. "You have honored your promise. No one would stop you." Jack looked into the fire for a long moment, then at her. "Maybe I could," he said quietly, "but I don't reckon I'd want to." She smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips that said everything words could not. The next morning, the tribe prepared to move to their summer grounds. Horses were saddled, baskets packed, laughter echoing between the cliffs. Jack helped with the heavy work, his shirt damp with sweat, his heart strangely light. As they set out, he rode beside the sisters, not as a captive, not as a stranger, but as a man who had found his place among them. When the caravan reached the ridge above the valley, the world below opened wide. Endless plains of gold and green, the river winding like a silver snake through the heart of the desert. The wind carried the scent of juniper and dust, and Jack felt it, the peace he'd been chasing for half his life. He turned to Tala, who met his gaze with that same calm strength. "The spirits chose well," she said softly. "You were meant to find us." He nodded, his voice low and rough. "Or maybe I was meant to find myself." As the sun rose behind them, casting long shadows across the earth, the three sisters rode beside him, silent, graceful, powerful as the land itself. Somewhere between the red cliffs and the open sky, Jack Dalton, once a lost cowboy wandering the west, became something else entirely. He was no longer running from ghosts or mistakes. He was part of a story older than the desert, a vow made not out of duty, but out of faith, in the people who had shown him kindness, and in the man he had finally become. And as dawn spilled its golden light across the valley, Jack knew that whatever roads lay ahead, he would ride them with the same truth that had been spoken that morning, not as an intruder, but as one who belonged to the wild heart of the West.